By the time I was 29, I had achieved nearly every goal I had set for myself. The career, the apartment, the promotions, the financial stability. From the outside, my life looked like a success story. But one evening, after receiving the biggest promotion of my career, I sat alone in my apartment staring out the window and realized something that terrified me. I had everything I thought I wanted, and I had never felt more empty.
Welcome back to God Showed Up Stories. Success is something many people spend their entire lives chasing. We set goals, make sacrifices, work long hours, push ourselves harder, and often tell ourselves that happiness is waiting on the other side of the next achievement, the next promotion, the next paycheck, the next milestone, the next accomplishment. But what happens when we finally arrive? What happens when we achieve the goals we've spent years pursuing and discover something still feels missing? It's a question many people quietly wrestle with, especially in a world that constantly tells us that success should make us happy. Maybe you felt that way. Maybe you've achieved something significant and wondered why the satisfaction didn't last. Maybe you've spent years building a life that looks successful on the outside, while feeling disconnected on the inside. If so, this story is for you. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who may need encouragement. And comment below. Purpose matters. Never forget this. A successful life and a meaningful life are not always the same thing. All right, let's get into the story.
By the time I was 29 years old, I had accomplished nearly everything I had set out to achieve. At least that's what everyone told me. I had a career that most people would consider successful. A beautiful apartment in the city, financial stability, professional recognition, the kind of life that looked impressive on social media, the kind of life people congratulated you for. Friends often told me how lucky I was. Family members said they were proud of me. Coworkers assumed I was living the dream, and for a while, I believed them, because reaching those goals felt exciting. At first, every promotion brought a rush of satisfaction. Every financial milestone felt rewarding. Every accomplishment felt like proof that my hard work was paying off. But there was a problem. The feeling never lasted. A promotion would make me happy for a week. Then I would start chasing the next one. A financial goal would feel exciting for a few days. Then it would become normal. Every achievement seemed to create another target, another goal, another reason to keep running. I told myself this was ambition. I told myself this was success. But looking back, I think I was afraid to slow down long enough to ask whether I was actually happy. My days became incredibly predictable. Wake up, go to work, answer emails, attend meetings, solve problems, come home, eat dinner, watch television, sleep, then do it all again. Weeks blurred together. Months disappeared. Years passed faster than I cared to admit. The strange thing was that my life was becoming fuller while somehow feeling emptier. Most of my friendships had faded. Not because of conflict, because of neglect. Work always seemed more urgent, more important, more deserving of my attention. When friends invited me somewhere, I often declined. When family called, I sometimes returned the call days later. I always assumed there would be more time, more opportunities, more chances to reconnect later. Meanwhile, my faith slowly drifted into the background. I still believed. I still prayed occasionally. But God had become something I fit into my schedule rather than someone I built my life around. Without realizing it, my career had become the center of everything. And the more successful I became, the more isolated I felt. Then came the promotion. The promotion I had wanted for nearly 3 years. The one I thought would finally make everything feel worthwhile. When my boss announced it, everyone congratulated me. Coworkers shook my hand. Friends sent texts. My parents called immediately. It should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Instead, something unexpected happened. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment. The city lights stretched across the skyline outside my window. The promotion email was still open on my laptop. I remember staring at it, waiting to feel excited, waiting to feel proud, waiting to feel something. But all I felt was numb. The realization scared me. Because for the first time, I couldn't avoid the question that had been quietly growing in the back of my mind. If this isn't enough, what am I actually looking for? I sat there for nearly an hour, looking around the apartment I had worked so hard to afford, thinking about the career I had spent years building, and wondering why none of it felt meaningful anymore. It wasn't that my life was bad. Far from it. I was grateful for everything I had. That's what made the feeling even more confusing. I felt guilty for being dissatisfied. After all, countless people would gladly trade places with me. Yet deep down, I knew something was missing. Not success, not money. Something deeper. Something I couldn't quite identify. A few days later, a coworker invited me to volunteer at a local charity event. My first instinct was to decline. I was busy. There was always work to do. But for some reason, I agreed. Maybe I needed a change. Maybe I needed to get out of my routine. Maybe I was simply tired of spending every weekend alone. The event took place at a community center on the edge of town. People were organizing donations, preparing meals, and helping local families. The atmosphere felt different from anything I experienced during a normal work week. There was no competition, no titles, no performance reviews, just people helping people. For several hours, I worked alongside volunteers of all ages. Some were retired, some were students, some were families volunteering together. And despite knowing none of them, I found myself enjoying the day more than I expected. Near the end of the event, I was assigned to help an older man organize donated supplies. He introduced himself as Walter, a retired teacher. At first, our conversation was ordinary. Small talk, questions about work, questions about life. But as the afternoon went on, the conversation became something much deeper. And before the day was over, Walter would say something that completely changed the way I viewed success. As the afternoon continued, Walter and I worked side by side, sorting donations and organizing supplies. The conversation flowed naturally. At first, we talked about careers, then life, then the things that mattered most. Eventually, he asked what I did for a living. I explained my job, the promotion, the long hours, the goals I had spent years chasing. He listened carefully. Then he smiled. "You've done very well for yourself." I thanked him, but something in my expression must have given me away. Because after a moment, he asked a question I wasn't expecting. "Are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. For several seconds, I didn't answer. Because honestly, I wasn't sure. I had spent years measuring success, promotions, income, achievements, recognition. But I hadn't spent much time measuring happiness, or purpose, or fulfillment. Walter seemed to understand my silence. He nodded knowingly. Then he told me a story. Years earlier, he had a former student who became extremely successful. The student built a thriving business, made a great deal of money, earned respect from nearly everyone around him. Yet one day, the former student confessed something surprising. Despite achieving everything he thought he wanted, he felt empty. Walter smiled gently. You know what he told me? I shook my head. He said he spent 20 years climbing a ladder. Walter paused, only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. Those words landed harder than I expected, because deep down, I knew exactly what he meant. I wasn't unhappy because I lacked success. I was unhappy because I had built my entire identity around it. Everything revolved around work. Everything revolved around achievement. Everything revolved around proving myself. And somewhere along the way, I had neglected the things that actually gave life meaning. Relationships, community, faith, service, connection, purpose. Before we left that afternoon, Walter shared one final thought. Success is what you accomplish. He smiled. Fulfillment is who you become while accomplishing it. I drove home thinking about those words. For days afterward, I couldn't stop replaying the conversation. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about the next promotion. I was thinking about the life I was building and whether it reflected the person I truly wanted to be. The months that followed weren't dramatic. There wasn't some life-changing moment. No sudden revelation. No overnight transformation. Instead, change happened slowly, one decision at a time. I started calling family members more often, not because I felt obligated, because I genuinely wanted to reconnect. I reached out to old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Some conversations were awkward at first. Others felt like no time had passed at all. I continued volunteering, not because it looked good on a resume, because it reminded me that life was bigger than my own goals. Helping others brought a sense of fulfillment I hadn't experienced in a long time. I also began reconnecting with my faith. Not perfectly, not all at once, but consistently. Prayer became part of my life again. Scripture became something I actually made time for. Church became more than an occasional visit. The more I focused on things that mattered beyond myself, the more my perspective changed. My career remained important. I still worked hard. I still cared about excellence. But it stopped being the center of my identity. Work became part of my life, not my entire life. Looking back now, I don't believe God showed up through a miracle. I believe he showed up through a volunteer event, through a retired teacher, through a simple conversation that forced me to ask questions I had been avoiding for years. Today, I still have goals. I still pursue success. But success means something different now. It isn't measured only by promotions, or income, or recognition. It's measured by relationships, impact, character, faith, and the difference I make in the lives of others. The promotion I once thought would change everything eventually became just another line on a resume. But the lessons I learned afterward changed the direction of my life. Because I discovered something many people spend years searching for. A meaningful life is built on more than achievement. It's built on purpose. And purpose is found not only in what we accomplish, but in how we serve, how we love, and who we become along the way.
If this story touched your heart, comment below. Purpose matters. Take a moment and ask yourself this question. What am I building my life around? Success, recognition, achievement, or something deeper? There is nothing wrong with ambition. There is nothing wrong with working hard and pursuing goals. But don't forget to invest in the things that truly matter. Relationships, faith, community, service, character. Because one day, those are the things that will matter most. If this story encouraged you, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment below, subscribe to God Showed Up Stories, share this story with someone who may need encouragement. Thank you for spending this time with us. And always remember, God always shows up right on time.